Alyssa, you're the founder of Alinato Events.
Yes.
You're based here in New York.
Yes. Just in Chelsea.
And your background, I was reading a little bit about you. You started in corporate events.
I did, yeah.
So curious, how was that transition from corporate events to weddings?
So when I first started the company, I was super young. Company's been around for almost 14 years. And I was always under the impression that brides and grooms were scary. So I was focused exclusively on corporate events. And then the corporate events, I just was like, I was a little bored, honestly. They're a little dry sometimes. I was like, I want to do weddings. I want to mix it up.
What did you think was scary about working with couples?
I was so young and everyone's always, that was in the era of that show Bridezilla. And when it was like, when everybody in pop culture was just talking about how brides are so intense and all this stuff. And by the way, not the case at all.
Fake news.
Fake news.
It's true. I think there's a whole narrative around how as soon as someone gets engaged, all of a sudden they lose their mind and they become a nightmare to deal with.
Yeah. Yeah. It actually happens further down the line.
Yeah. I also find that it's less of the couples that I hear the stories about and more of the parents, the family, those surrounding the couples kind of cause the drama.
It's very situational, I will say. In Manhattan, the one thing I think we need to address is that it's not the Bridezillas. It's usually not the moms or the dads. Everyone's like, they're excited. Their kid is getting married. In Manhattan, it's usually the grooms.
What? You got Groomzillas?
Well, because everybody here is really successful and ambitious, right? So to make it here, you have to be, on top of your stuff.
A certain type of personality.
Yeah. And I think I draw in clients that are very similar to me. I'm kind of type A. I'm like a lot. And I love it. Like that, all of our clients are so fun. But yeah, the grooms are a little bit more intense. They live in the numbers here. They have Excels, all that good stuff.
So give me a couple examples of some Groomzilla situations.
Oh my God, I'm not going to name names.
But just situations.
No, I get it. So honestly, everybody online is going to agree with me here. The price of florals escapes men. They're like, why? But think about it this way. Every individual flower gets touched by the florist.
And it's grown, and it's cut, and then it's shipped or it's packaged.
Yeah. And then it's placed out beautifully. They rub it, they do all the things. And so, they're like, oh God, it's this much money. And it's like, honey, that flower had to have many passes at the hand. And then it's, displayed beautifully. The women understand that, but I always have to talk about design and decor pricing with the men. They're like, why do we need linens? I'm like, oh, why are the chairs needing to be replaced? I'm like, And
those are the things that people don't realize can add up, right? You're not thinking about, my venue doesn't have cute chairs or chairs that match our aesthetic, whether we're super modern, we're going for a more vintage or chic, whatever the vibe is.
Yeah.
If the chairs don't match, they can really
it can
mess
ruin.
with the photos and mess with the vibe.
It can ruin the entire design. And people think I'm being dramatic, but this is how I'll explain it to a man who just is like, I don't want to pay that for silverware or whatever. I'm like, if you got a custom car, right? Are you going to cheap out at the tires? Are you going to cheap out on the seats? You're just going to let them put factory settings in there? Probably not. Probably not. So it's the same. It's where you think you can cut that it's not going to matter in something that's so front facing. I don't advise usually.
So chairs matter.
Chairs matter.
Linens definitely matter.
Linens matter. Yeah. And yeah, I mean, the brides are usually super supportive. So we're usually just having to kind of tag team.
To work through.
Yeah. Yeah.
I guess that's understandable. You've never rented a knife before or a chair before. You don't think it's important.
No, you've never planned a wedding before. So you are I don't know, it's probably fine, but the professionals over here, we're this is 100 something deep. We're it's going to ruin the whole day. We're a little dramatic. I'm not going to lie.
It's going to ruin it if you don't upgrade.
It's going to ruin everything.
I'm so curious because, you primarily do weddings in Manhattan and there's only a time of year where you can be outdoors in New York because weather like right now is rough. It's very hot.
So rough.
And then in the winter, it's very cold.
Mm-hmm.
But so many couples want that natural lighting, that natural kind of airy aesthetic.
Yeah.
Like what happens if a couple comes to you with a venue that doesn't have that like…
Oh yeah, I've had that before. Sometimes people hire us after they chose the venue. I think a lot of people get confused where they're like, well, we have to set a date and let's just do the venue and then do the planner. And I'm like, oh no, abort, don't do it that way. Hire the planner first.
Because the planner can help you find the venue. That's like the core thing that they know and can do.
Exactly. Yeah, they're going off Google. Whereas like we're getting emails of like every new venue opening, like the day it opens, like that's not on Google, whatever. So honestly, I will say, and I've said this before and I get a little bit of heat for this, I love a winter wedding because it's just indoors and you know what it is. Whereas we're in the Northeast and it's super unpredictable, like you just said. So sometimes we'll lock in a venue with an outdoor component and people really build their mind up around this outdoor component. And then it floods that day and they're like devastated. And I'm like, guys, this was always potentially in the cards. But you need that good light because like some of these ballrooms, man, that lighting is treacherous.
It's hard.
Yeah. So are the rugs.
Rugs. So what do you do with the rugs?
I hate rugs. But if it's a situation where we have to deal with it, I'll sometimes tell the photographer like, 2 feet up, honey. Try not to get that. But
that's probably something that couples or your Excel grooms are surprised by. The cost to recarpet.
Oh my God.
A ballroom, which is what a lot of people do.
Oh, I know. It's insane. Look, if you got the budget, let's go. That is fun. But most people probably aren't going to spend that. It's like we've got to do the dance floor, maybe a runner, and that's kind of the way around that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, if it's dark enough, if it's a nighttime situation, maybe you won't be looking at the floor.
Yeah. And
that's why you need those big florals to keep the tension up.
Yeah. There's like, you have to dress the room that you have, right? So if we have like an indoor situation with no windows, we're going to set this like romantic, moody thing. If it's like airy and bright, we're going to lead into that. It's just like, that's why having a planner is helpful because sometimes people are like, well, I don't need a planner because I know my Pinterest board and my vendors are going to just, they're going to tell me. And it's like, without a planner, sometimes some of these vendors just are not, it's like, I don't know. They're just not, they're like, yeah, whatever you tell us to do, we're going to do. And it's like, no, you should be advising sometimes.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, there are so many talented florists and photographers, and oftentimes the skill set will bleed into, I actually can style a good setup as a photographer because I've just been shooting so many weddings. Or as a florist, I can help you pair, your tabletop, right? To make sure the florals really stand out. But that is the exception. It's not the norm. You're not 100%. Hiring, your florist to be your event designer. And if you don't have, someone that you trust on that, and look, even some planners don't do design. They're like, hey, I'm just the logistics person.
I know. I kind of don't understand that because I'm like, it's kind of like going to a plastic surgeon that doesn't know how to do art. You know what I mean? Like, would you trust somebody to build your nose that like can't draw worth a damn? Like, it's a little weird. You have to be a little bit artistic to be good at this job because you're the one, yes, you're doing all the logistics, but you're putting everything together. So
you need things to look cohesive together.
Yeah. Like you could always hire an event designer, which some people are all about. But why wouldn't you want a 2-for-1?
I think it makes sense. I think over the years that I've been in the wedding industry, I meet so many different personalities, so many different types of creatives.
Yeah.
And I have found that some people have both sides. They're the A type and they have like a really strong aesthetic and a point of view.
Yeah.
But I think there's others that are just like, hey, I'm the creative. I want to come in. I want to paint. I don't want to figure out when people show up and when they leave. And, I have friends that are artists that are very much like that. They're incredible artists, but they're not the business person. They're not the logistics person.
I get it.
Perhaps you are a rare breed and that you have both sides.
I get it. I actually tell people this a lot, especially when we're dealing with, I'm like, look, some people are Elon Musk, right? Some people are just like good for the creative. Like they shouldn't be at the helm running things. Like, it's kind of why I feel like I'm a little bit more unique. I have like an artistic background. Like I was a painter my whole life. I still am. And yeah, I'm a weird bird. I get it. But yeah, I'm like, if you're putting everything together and you can't envision it yourself, that's a little odd to me. So I mean, look, though, if I'm working with a vendor that is super, super creative and they're like, here's what we think, I'm like, oh my God, this is the greatest thing ever. Like, I love Birch.
Oh, they're amazing. Yeah, no. Because as he's technically a designer / florist.
Yeah.
But I imagine but he actually says he always recommends a planner.
Oh, he's all about a planner.
Yeah. He's not trying to do logistics.
Yeah. And
so there you go.
So many people, I hear this a lot from florists. I think they sometimes think the florist or the caterer is going to be like the planner. And they're always like, Alyssa, can I introduce you to this person? Please help them.
Oh, so you get inbounds from vendors who are working with couples that don't have a planner. So how late in the game will you take a wedding?
Okay, so we have a multitude of packages. We do I call them Total, Perfectionist, Wedding BFF, and Game Day. So Total is multi-day celebrations, right? Like an Indian wedding, if we're doing rehearsal dinner, wedding day, whatever. Perfectionist is full service planning, soup to nuts. And that's those two packages are most of our couples. Partial planning, we offer. But I truly hate partial planning because there's such gray area with planners and partial planning where it's okay, we're contracted for basically half of the wedding planning. And then sometimes you're having to tell people oh, I can't help you with that, which just feels weird because so sometimes in that package, I do find we get a little abused. Because I can't say no. I'm a people pleaser in a bad way.
And you also want it to just
I want it to look
cute.
nice. Yeah. If they're trying to do something that's going to look bad, we're putting our name on this, So I advise people. So game day is the 2-month out mark, right? And when vendors bring us a couple, they're usually the second they hear they don't have a planner. So sometimes it's right in the beginning stages, which is what I prefer. But sometimes it's hey, they need a day of planner and then we just assess the situation. So it's kind of all over the spectrum to answer your question.
And how many weddings are you doing a year?
20. I wouldn't, if we're doing more than that, I'm unwell. So probably not.
And what is the size and scale, just to give context for the types of weddings that you're doing?
I mean, we're in Manhattan, so these are 6-figure weddings.
Already, cha-ching.
Cha-ching, cha-ching. I mean, we've worked with all budgets, truly, I don't discriminate, but that's usually where you need to be in this area for us to have fun planning the wedding and not having to cut corners. And honestly, our weddings these days are usually 100 to 250.
I mean, that's a big range.
Yeah, I know. Most of our weddings fall at that 150 mark because that's just the spaces in the city. There's only so many places over 200 people. Yeah, and they're mostly the spring, summer, fall situations.
But you advocate for the winter wedding.
I love a winter. And we usually have 2 a year because most people are afraid. But
of the snow and people not showing up last minute because of...
But it doesn't even really snow here anymore. El Nino.
That's true. What are some of your favorite New York venues for weddings?
Oh my God, you're getting me to spill the tea. I love the Plaza. Love the team. They're easy.
That's very pricey location.
It is pricey.
But it is iconic.
It is. So is the New York Public Library, and I love it. Also 620 Loft.
Where's that?
It's in it's near Rock Center, owned by the Rainbow Room team. So it's their adjacent situation.
I've seen events at the Rainbow Room too.
I haven't done any there yet, which is kind of crazy.
I saw a pretty epic bar mitzvah that could have been, it was probably a $500,000 bar mitzvah.
Oh my God, yeah.
It was pretty epic. And I don't know, I think the type of wedding that would be there would be a super dark, moody rock and roll situation, but it has a hot tub. I mean, if you had a hot tub in the middle of your wedding reception, that's pretty unique.
Yeah, it's we haven't really done anything there because of the space, basically. So most of because I would say 90% of our weddings this year are 150 or under, right? So we have to think about the number, and that's a huge part of that decision. So we have a few weddings that are under 100. So 620 Loft is the most perfect setting for that. Indoor, outdoor. It's a sexy view. It's a blank space, so we can make it whatever we want. I mean, I have a soft spot for the Prospect Park Boathouse. They've just been with me since the beginning.